Hello all and welcome back. I hope you had an absolutely splendid 10 to 15 minute break. I'm about to pass over to Jade and Charlotte in a second, who are going to be taking us through how to set up an effective user journey. But just wanted to remind you, if you want to have a chat with anyone, make sure to use the chat function on the right hand side of your screen. It could be as simple as letting us know what beverage you've been drinking on our breaks between sessions today. And on top of that, remember to get your questions in and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end as well. We'll have another little break after this session for another 15 minutes or so before we go to the next session. But for now, I will pass over to Jade and Charlotte.
Hi, thank you for that intro, Nick. Hello and welcome to this session on how to set up effective user journeys. I'm Jade Stayano. I'm a digital skills program manager at Media Trust, and I'm delighted to be your host for this session. And as Nick said, we'll be talking about how to optimize a user journey, how to prioritize, test, and measure improvements. And the speaker for this session is Charlotte Parker, user researcher and CRO strategist at Fresh Egg. After spending several years as a senior auditor for a global pharmaceutical company, Charlotte transferred her keen eye for research and her passion for human behaviour to Fresh Egg and the digital industry. She now focuses directly on understanding and advocating for users to deliver brilliant digital experiences. If you've got any questions for Charlotte throughout her presentation, post these in the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try to get as many as we can in at the end of the session. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Charlotte.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jade. Thanks for joining, everyone. Lovely to have you on board. So I'm going to cover how to set up effective user journeys today. So just some session learning objectives before we start, as Jade mentioned. So there are 3 main objectives from today's session, and they are the importance of understanding your users and mapping their journeys. 5 of the key motivators that encourage people to donate and how to address them. And then how to prioritise, where to focus, implement changes with testing and measure their impact. So I'll get started with the importance of identifying and understanding user journeys. So the foundation of a meaningful user journey is understanding your users, engaging with them and providing them with a meaningful experience. So the best way to start off when looking to improve your user's journey is to do some user research with them. Some people can be skeptical about the value of user research because it's not always based on numbers and statistics, so the return on investment is trickier to measure than analytics. But failing to understand your user base is often the main driver for an ineffective user journey. So research is all about understanding your users' needs, their goals, their motivations, and their behaviours. And by building this knowledge about the people who interact with your charity, you can optimise your site so that it best supports them in reaching their goals and having a great experience while they're doing so. So research itself can come in many different forms, looking at analytical data, sending out surveys or feedback requests, maybe holding interviews with your audience, or even testing the website directly with them, which is called usability testing. Now, usability tests and audience interviews especially can be hugely insightful and really give you that chance to speak directly to your users and build that bigger picture. So in terms of being a charity and utilising the resources you have for research and really making things go further, the more relevant research you can do at any stage, the better. But not everything has to be researched at once, as you can get a huge amount of insight from small research projects. User research and audience discovery itself doesn't have to be expensive. Even with a limited budget, you can be resourceful and conduct the research that you and your fundraisers need. So firstly, start by taking some quality time to really define your objectives and the questions that you want to answer. This will help you identify the questions that you need to ask. Once you've done that, on the left-hand side, you can see here some of the research actions that you can take. So one of the most important parts of user research is recruiting the right people to talk to for your sessions. If you talk to the wrong people, you might not get the insights that you need to move your project in the right direction. So you can review the details that you have from your own user base that exists, the data that you have, and narrow down your list to focus on maybe some specific segments. There's lots of potential sources of existing data that you can help to understand your fundraisers as well. So question that existing data, do start to look at your web analytics, the themes from your helpline calls, or feedback from actual user-facing staff, so people within your charity who typically speak to your users. Those are always great places to start. And then on the right-hand side, I've got some resources there that you can use to help you out. So do reach out to free resources, seek out things on the internet, because there's an abundance of information out there. So there are many free tools that can help you understand your users. So video call software that helps you reach your supporters, survey software that will help you gather feedback, and analytics platforms that can tell you what people are doing or not doing on your site. It does look a little bit like I'm advertising for Google here, but they do have some really great free platforms. So Google Meet, Google Forms, Analytics, and Jamboard, which is a kind of post-it note whiteboarding platform, all have free options. They're really good to start out with. And then, like I mentioned, seeking out resources online is a great way to start when you're looking at utilising the resources you have and you can get hold of to do some user research. So a couple that I've linked to here are the ones that we've produced at Fresh Egg. So 2 articles on how to conduct research with people of different ages, and also a link to our user research principles, which are the kind of 10 foundations that we base all of our research around, just to make sure it's ethical and robust and honest. So it's a great place to kind of for you to start to get an idea of how to really shape the foundation of any user research that you want to do, and make sure you're asking the right questions. So to give you just a real quick example, because I know everyone loves a case study, of the vast kind of wealth of insights that you can get from user research. So I'll run through this quick case study from recent work we did with Myeloma UK. It was all about understanding their users, which they identified as actually being 4 different audience groups. I've put a link at the top there to the actual case study itself, where we really walk through the details of the challenges that the charity faced and the research we did, and what the outcomes were. But kind of in summary, they had quite an aging website where content and navigation and features have been added over the years. And they were looking to gain a deeper understanding from their users to inform an upcoming web rebuild. So we did a workshop with their internal teams, which included some user journey mapping, which I'll cover in the next couple of slides, as well as 20 interviews across those kind of 4 different audience groups that they picked out. And doing this piece with their audiences gave them kind of 3 outputs. So short-term immediate actions, long-term web build recommendations, and then ongoing strategy pointers as well to kind of apply to other areas of the business to increase that engagement. So these included some kind of real eye-opening insights that will kind of change the shape and the content of some of the website when that rebuild begins. So spending time getting to know your users can be one of the most important pieces of work you do when it comes to setting up effective user journeys, and can hopefully, you have a look at this case study that will highlight that quite nicely for you. So I will move on from the user research into mapping the journey and identifying opportunities. So the best way to visualize your fundraisers kind of end-to-end journey is by creating a user journey map. I've given you a very small example of what that looks like on the right-hand side there. So you've got the journey stages along the top, and then the main journey elements along the side. There are loads of free templates available online for creating these, but really the simplest and probably the most effective way to start off is to get as many people as you can in a room, either virtually or in person, to collaborate and do a post-it note exercise. I'm really sorry if you can hear drilling at the moment. There's building works going on in my office, so apologies for that. I'll try and speak louder. So in terms of collaborating and doing a post-it note exercise, I mentioned some free tools, and there are some free tools for doing this as well. So lots of online post-it note whiteboards if you're unable to do in-person meetings at the moment. So things like FigJam, Whimsical and Miro are a few of those. But back to journey mapping itself. So journey mapping is hugely beneficial as it can highlight all the areas where your supporters interact with different parts of your charity, and also highlights where there's room to improve and enhance those journeys. So when you've got a picture of that whole journey, you can then maximize the opportunities to kind of get users on board and encourage that real lifetime value from fundraising. The journey map itself also provides that kind of visual summary for your stakeholders, people who maybe are not as engaged as they could be. It really paints that picture really nicely for them, and can be great for aligning people's thinking internally, so for validating or disproving assumptions. They're equally great in the end for your customers as well, so your donors, your supporters, because you'll be improving the experience that they have along the way, essentially. So what I'm going to do in the next slide is I'm just going to take you through the one element of a journey and show you what that might look like if you were filling out this journey map. So, okay, so here I've used the very first stage of the user's potential journey, which I've put here as researching. So where the user's goal is to find a charity to donate to. At this point, they need the charity's values to align to their own, and they need to feel confident in how their money is going to help others. So we've started to fill out the first two boxes in our journey map now. They'll then take actions that will give them a few different touch points with your charity. So when you are mapping a journey, consider each of the fundraising stages from the user's perspective specifically. So think about their goals and their needs. It's quite easy to kind of fall back into your own internal needs. So you've got to really keep your mindset on how your users are feeling. Think about the actions they're taking, including outside of the charity. So don't just think about the website, bring in any in-person interactions, any phone calls, any emails they're using. So to think about your users' experiences with these touch points, you then potentially get some moments of truth coming out, which is where you can identify your improvements or changes to make. So are they struggling to identify your charity's values and impact? Your website should work hard to kind of display your charity's mission up front. So it might need some reorganization of content to improve structure or maybe navigation. Are they feeling unsure about where the money might actually go, what programs it contributes to? There are really some really great ways to kind of nicely illustrate the distribution of that donation throughout the journey. And you could also provide something like a code of ethics or an annual report to show people exactly where the money is being placed. Of course, this isn't necessarily the start to all users' journeys, but hopefully you can see the kind of thing that you might be doing if you are mapping out a particular stage of a user's journey. Many people will spend quite a while getting to know a charity, maybe kind of learning more, signing up to a newsletter, something like that, before they commit to donating. So it is important to think outside of that linear journey when you're thinking about setting up that effective user journey. Hopefully it gives you an idea of how to get started. So next I'll very briefly cover 5 motivators that influence people to donate and give top-level ideas for how to use these throughout your website or your users' journeys. So there's no objective framework for a good or bad choice of charity, obviously. So it means that personal motivations and context really do have a huge impact on donations. So you really need to think about kind of what makes people donate. The information that I'm just going to share with you here has come from a white paper that we're drafting at the moment called Why People Give, which explains what fundraisers can learn from economics and psychology and behavioural science. So that will be out in the coming weeks, so do keep an eye out on that. But some of these might seem obvious, but it's easy to kind of lose sight of psychological motivators sometimes and how they can be applied throughout that whole journey, not just on the homepage. So the first is empathy, which is the ability to understand and share another person's experience. So you can use human stories and highlight shared experiences to really encourage this kind of thinking. The next is proximity. So proximity as a motivator tells us that the closeness to or the association with an issue really increases the likelihood that someone will act. You can kind of bridge that distance between your donor and your cause with either clever copywriting or imagery. I've seen, for example, Charity Water do this quite well with images of babies' bottles filled with dirty water, or food served up without the water included. So things like dried pasta on a plate with sauce on it kind of makes people feel much closer to the reality of that charity's cause. Next, narrative is a big motivator. So stories communicate details about kind of characters, emotions, and causes that aren't really conveyed well by plain facts. So telling a story about your cause or how supporters can help your cause can be a real powerful motivator. And then we have liking. So when surveyed, most people claim that they prefer to donate to charities with the greatest need, but in reality, charismatic or attractive subjects do get much more fundraising. It's no accident that the WWF logo is a giant panda. So cute. So charities that have less charismatic subjects can maybe encourage a bit more kind of purposeful thinking by presenting unexpected or surprising content that kind of disrupts users' mental flows. And then finally, people's values are big motivators. So potential donors and volunteers are most likely to take action for a cause that resonates with their fundamental values. Again, seems obvious, but can be quite nuanced. So do try and target your campaigns at people that you know care and build that message around their core values. Often find that religious charities are good examples for comparison when you're thinking about how to do this. Okay, so hopefully that gave you just a quick refresh of some of the real key things to apply when thinking about making your journeys more effective. Really simple things, but can make such a huge difference. So I'll move on now to prioritizing, testing, and measuring. So prioritizing, once you've had a chance to speak to donors and you've got all your stakeholders to map out the journey and identify opportunities, it's going to be time to consider how to implement your improvements or tactics. Prioritization is a real key part of that, of improving that journey, because you'll need to make sure you're focused on the tactics that are going to have the best impact with a resource you have available, essentially. It can be really easy to focus just on quick wins, but if they have no real tangible impact, then they'll really undermine your efforts, I guess. So I'd recommend using a real simple prioritization matrix that will look a little bit like the image that I've put there on the right-hand side. So this method allows you to assess how challenging the change is, to assess the resource you have available, and also what the predicted impact of that change is going to be. And the kind of three things, when they're together, will give you a prioritization score for each item that will allow you to create that kind of informed testing plan or implementation roadmap. So yeah, do really try and prioritize the items that you want to change, because like I said, if you get that wrong, you may find that you're not getting the results that you're hoping for. So I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about this at a high level, but I'm sure we could do a full webinar on this topic because it can be quite complex and involves data. So testing, measuring, and optimizing your journey. So if you take one thing away from this section, it's that a good testing program is a reliable way to make informed and measurable changes to your website without that kind of bias and chance element playing part of it. Again, it doesn't have to be expensive. Probably tends to be one where it can be, but it doesn't have to be. And it could be the difference between a big win and a major fail on your site, on your kind of live site. So certainly worth doing if you can. So I'll just take you through the 4 steps that I've put on the slide here. So firstly, define what you want to measure and take a benchmark. So this can be something high level if you have a lot of traffic, or maybe something quite small and nuanced if you've got a lower traffic, a smaller number of users coming to your site. 2 really kind of high level examples. If you want to improve your donation page, your starting conversion goal might be as simple as the total number of donations. If you want to improve your email sign up form, your conversion goal might be form submissions. Just a couple of really simple ones to get you started, really. So second on the list there, design your test around a hypothesis. Quite a few people miss this one out. So a hypothesis is a prediction of what you think the outcome will be. So this way you learn the reason why changing something on your site really does lead to that improvement. These are typically structured as if something is changed, then an effect will happen due to a reason. So for example, if a donation button is added to the home page header, for example, then entry into the donation funnel will increase due to the decreased mental load on your users while they're kind of searching around for the place to donate. It's a really simple one. So then number 3, running a test and analysing your results. So A/B testing is probably the most well-known way of doing that. It's a way to compare 2 versions of something by showing them to a split proportion of your audience to kind of figure out which performs better. There are lots of tools for this, and they can vary pretty wildly in price and capability. If you're on a budget, it is worth knowing that Google Optimise is a great free way to start this. So then finally, build your winners and launch. So keep an eye on your analytics. A/B testing is massively about measurement and analytics. So keep an eye and make sure you make those comparisons of your key metrics and report your successes. Don't forget to update your testing roadmap or whatever the prioritization matrix output was, just to document the outcome of your tests, because in future you'll want to kind of come back and remember why you changed, say, the color of the button on that page. So I've spoken specifically about A/B testing and experimentation here, but for smaller charities, it might not be an option. But in these cases, another round of kind of well-executed user testing can reveal all you need to know. So finally, I'll leave you with another case study that nicely demonstrates the value of testing and measuring. In 2020, the RSCPA came to us with a need to grow their revenue from existing customers. So our program with them ran throughout 2021 and helped increase the frequency and the size of their online donations. So we followed a really similar method to what I've basically talked you through. We identified suitable metrics. We prioritized these using a scoring matrix, and then we tested them out using a tool called Google Optimise. So exactly as I've mentioned. So doing this highlighted 12 winning tests that resulted in big increases in conversion rate of the donation page and in the average donation value, with kind of huge lifetime value overall for the RSCPA. So it really is worth running an experimentation program alongside your improvements that you're making to your customer journey, if you can. So yeah, I'm just going to summarize what we've been through today. Hopefully it's been interesting. You've got a couple of takeaways. So we covered the importance of understanding your users and mapping their journeys. So understanding your users is critical. User research can have lots of different forms, and it can be done on a budget using your existing resources. And then mapping your journey really visualizes that journey, puts you into your users' shoes, aligns your stakeholders, and can identify those real moments of truth that you can make a difference to. We covered how to optimize the user journey to address those key charitable motivations. So some psychological motivators, how they apply to you and your charity, and using those as starting points for getting donors on board and encouraging that lifetime value. And then finally, we have how to prioritize, test, and measure impact. So prioritize by assessing the effort, the resource, and the impact. And then define your metrics, create your hypothesis, run, monitor, and assess your tests, and then implement your winners. So that is everything from me. Thank you for listening. I am happy to answer any questions you have.
Hi, Charlotte. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. On behalf of all the thank yous and everything in the chat, I can see that was a really great session, really interesting. We do have a couple of great questions, actually. Poppy Wood has asked, I want to reach out to my current members about improving their journey and overall experiences. And I'm just wondering if it's a legitimate reason for contacting them, worried about GDPR. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely contact people. There's ways that you can phrase questions to avoid asking for personal data. I would try to ask as little demographic and personal data as possible. So try not to worry about that GDPR. Move it to the side if you can. Asking people for their feedback is, yeah, 100% recommend it.
Brilliant, thank you. And Ren asked, how do we convince upper management and trustees to make these changes when it's not something that's really in the plan? What are the best ways to kind of convince people of the benefits of this?
I guess I find the best way to convince people of the benefits is to tell them about the problems with not doing it. So really to explain that not optimizing and making your user journey customer focused and really focusing on your user can basically mean that they're not getting what they need and can really affect those goals that your upper management are hoping to achieve. So, you know, the end goal is to give the customer exactly what they want and therefore make them as happy as they can to go on to, say, donate or sign up to your newsletter or really support the charity. So yeah, there's a lot of, again, resources out there. I'm happy to share a few good ones with you about how to discuss this with a stakeholder or how to measure the impact without needing to use data.
That's great. Thank you so much, Charlotte. Well, that's brilliant. Thanks again. I'm going to hand back over to Nick now, who's going to give us some more direction.
Hello, both of you. Thank you so much for that. That was absolutely brilliant. So yes, we're going to take another 15-minute break here now. So the next session we'll be going into will be at 11:45 or 11:45. And that will be about turning data into donations where efficiency meets affinity, which Jade from Salesforce.org will be joining us. So make sure you go out and get yourself a drink or something, and we'll see you all again in about 15 minutes time. Thank you so much.